Blog Talk Radio.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
Once again, it's time.
As the man said, once again, it's on. It's the End of the Bench podcast, hosted by yours truly, Brian. I'm coming at you live direct as I do every 168 hours. It's the End of the Bench. We have the distinct pleasure of having a guy who I spent hours and hours, I'm going to be honest, rooting against. I have to be honest. I mean, I was not a Florida State. I mean, I was a Florida State guy, because my uncles were Florida State guys. And this guy used to terrorize the teams. This guy at his university used to terrorize the teams I watched. But him and his backfield mate almost converted me. If I'd have caught on a little later, early in his career, I would have been a full-blown Notre Dame fan. With that being said, I want to introduce you guys to the one, the only, Reggie Brooks. It is my pleasure to have him on the show. Welcome aboard, Reggie. How you doing?
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure having you. For those who don't know, and, you know, if a lot of people only Google, Reggie was a powerhouse running back. He wasn't the biggest guy. He was in the backfield with Rick Meyer. He was in the backfield with people, you know, like Jerome Bettis. And this guy was a do-everything back. He had the shifty left and right. He run you over. He can catch the ball. He's part of one of the he might have one of the greatest touchdown catches in the history of the game. And when I was communicating with him, I asked him to come on without blinking. He said yes. And I want to thank you once again for saying that, man, because growing, we're the same age. We're around the same age. And you brought a lot of pleasure to me. You actually, I'm telling you, you actually made me stop rooting against Notre Dame. So I'll just let you know. You made me stop
wow, thank you.
I'm telling you, man. I think it was a Michigan game. I don't even know if, we'll get into that later. But, I mean, you made me truly go, oh, okay, I'm going to have to root for this guy. I can't root against him. You know, you and Jerome and Rick Meyer, it was like, man, Notre Dame, so what? You know, Chicago is almost Notre Dame West. And
oh yeah,
everybody in town was rooting for you, and I was like, nah, I ain't rooting for you. And then I started seeing you guys more and more and more. I was like, well, maybe. But anyway, man, let's start with you, man. You are a NFL second-round draft pick. You finished 5th in the Heisman voting your senior year. A Notre Dame alum from Oklahoma. First and foremost, how does a guy from Oklahoma with the rich tradition in Oklahoma football end up in the Midwest?
It's kind of a twofold story, you know, because my brother was a couple of years ahead of me. He played at Notre Dame as well. And he was, you know, he was one of the first guys to make it to Notre Dame from Oklahoma. Because you're right, nobody left Oklahoma, especially as a top talent. So that was the thing that really, you know, I had no idea about Notre Dame at all. You know, it was like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M. You know, it was back then. It was the SEC. Before the SEC, it was the Southwest Conference, and you know the Big Eight. So
Big Eight.
What Notre? Yeah, this is so that it's been a while. So you had Barry Switzer. You had a great number of guys that played. I was you know playing defense, and I was an athlete, so I wanted to play at Oklahoma, play at Oklahoma State. You know. Actually, Barry Sanders was leaving Oklahoma State the year I came out. So I'm thinking, hey, you know, it's all good. Keep it home, stay close to home. But my brother wound up going to Notre Dame. We actually had a number of notable Notre Dame alumni that were from the state of Oklahoma, and particularly my hometown. So, I'm thinking, hey, Notre Dame. To be honest with you, I had no idea where it was until my brother, took a scholarship under Coach Holtz. So, fast forward a couple of years, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were both on probation the year I came out. So, and Notre Dame had just won the national championship. So it was kind of a perfect storm for me to make that transition to South Bend from here. I had family on the team. I knew a lot of the players. They had just won a national championship, so they were coming off a huge season, and I'm high school senior, so I'm geeked out about coming and playing for a national championship team, and also getting a chance to play with my brother. And it didn't hurt that both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State were both on probation. So that was like, well, I'm not going to get as much exposure going to one of those schools right now just because of the situation.
Now, is football your first love?
Yes, it is. I would have to say my second love is track and field. I actually had track scholarships to a couple of SEC teams, Tennessee and Florida coming out. I was a 200-meter runner. Actually, I ran track, so my schedule from the time I was in the fifth grade all the way through high school was football, school track, summer track, rolled right back into football. So it was, a lot of our family vacations were geared around going to nationals for track and field for AAU.
Okay. Wow, that's awesome. Now, we at Notre Dame, initially you were a defensive back. How did that transition happen?
Well, coming out of high school, I was what was considered an athlete, so I played both sides of the ball. And, my senior year, Notre Dame only didn't recruit any defensive backs. So they had, Todd Light was there, Pat Terrell, Rod Smith. So several guys graduated as I was coming in, defensive backs, and Coach Holtz said, hey, we really need you to, play and give us some depth over on the defensive side of the ball. And, I'm a guy that I just want to play. So, whatever's going to get me on the field, give me an opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of it and try to make the most of it. So that's why I wound up on the defensive side of the ball, was because we only had, a limited number of defensive backs that year. So it was more about, depth and, quality. And sophomore year wound up starting several games.
Okay. Now, you're from Oklahoma. Even though you have family on the team, your brother's there with you. What's your transition from Oklahoma to South Bend, Indiana? Like you said, you didn't even know where this place was. Help me understand the transition.
It was tough. I mean, I coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma, that was, still is to some degree a fairly segregated city. So, growing up, I lived, mostly around African Americans. So growing up, I, from the time I was, knee high to a grasshopper, and anything I did, it was done, north side of town. Didn't, encounter a lot of Caucasians. So, my first experience at Notre Dame was, my recruiting visit in terms of real experience. So I'm like, I didn't really think anything of it because, again, I was mostly around players. So back then you had, the recruiting classes were predominantly African-American, the players.
Okay.
So, again, I was comfortable because, again, most of my time I was there, I was spending around American people. So it was comfortable, it was, quiet too. So Tulsa wasn't a, active place. So, I didn't really think a whole lot of it until, I signed, commit to Notre Dame. And even when I got there as a freshman, we came in, weeks before school started, so I'm there, and, everything is still kind of predominantly dealing with African Americans other than the coaches, so that wasn't a big deal. When it's time to move into your dorms, Notre Dame didn't have athletic dorms, so, excuse me, you wind up staying with a lot of the normal student body.
Oh.
So I'm moving in. Yeah, so it was like, whoa. I may have saw 2 African Americans or anyone of color the whole time I'm moving into my dorm. And I'm like, oh, this is a little different. So it was a major culture shock for me because, most of the people in my class, in the dorm were Caucasian, and I hadn't really been around them that much. So, that was the biggest, shock and transition for me. So it was definitely a learning experience, and but it also really forced me to get out of my comfort zone because I had to, adapt. I had to adjust my perspective, and and the thing about it, the biggest thing to me with Notre Dame is like you had a lot of people that really genuinely cared that you would have success, and that was whether they were white, black, whatever the case may be. So the toughest part for me was, like I said, it really forced me to grow up and develop an understanding of different cultures and different perspectives. So that was a major part of what helped me transition into manhood was my experience at the University of Notre Dame.
That's awesome. Allow me to digress. Tell me about Tulsa, Oklahoma, because, okay, I'm from Chicago, Illinois, and one of the best-kept secrets in Chicago is that it is an extremely segregated place. For example, I didn't interact with a non-black person until I went to college, much like yourself. And it's weird. I mean, even though, what, it shouldn't shock me because we're the same age, but you think that's a unique situation. Take me back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, because, during this era of woke and kneeling and social injustice things, like, only thing we hear about your hometown is Black Wall Street. Take me back to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and help me understand. And is that something that's spoken about? The whole Black Wall Street thing.
Man, I didn't hear about Black Wall Street until I was in college. I mean, they had really just shut that down. Tulsa was a very segregated city and still is in a lot of regards. I was fortunate. I grew up in a 2-parent household. Mom and dad worked. Weren't middle class, but we weren't poor. We things were. Everything in terms of economic success was on the south side of town. I lived on the north side, and if you wanted to go to a mall and get anything really, you had to go all the way to the other side of town. I mean, it was crazy, and I think about it now. I was like, man, what was wrong with us? We used to ride our bikes all the way across town, go to the mall and hang out. And that was another kind of a adjustment coming to Notre Dame was the fact that Tulsa, I mean, you knew where you stood. I mean, white folks told you, hey, you stay on your side of town, we stay on ours. And you knew, you knew the skinheads, you knew the racists, and it was up front, out in your face. And like I said, for me, I didn't deal with it because I wasn't around it. So coming to Notre Dame, I mean, it was kind of thrust at you that, hey, you're going to have to interact and develop relationships. Because like I said, most of my experiences growing up, particularly with white folks, it was like, you couldn't trust them and they're going to get you. So that was a real thing for me to adjust to coming to Notre Dame was like, not all of them are